I enjoyed this show on the whole. First thing they had was an amazing hype video for the championship tournament. Burned out cities, eyeless faces watching giant TV screens.
I didn't understand any of this.
It was all terrifying visions of a distant future of a world ruled by TNA, apparently.
It's a nightmare scenario.
It referred to the tournament as the heavyweight apocalypse. This was very creative. No one can deny that. Kurt Angle came out for a promo. He called the tournament part of his quest to get into the Hall of Fame, which sounds funny because they offered him a spot in the Hall of Fame and he turned it down. He called out Magnus, and they talked about Magnus's knee injury last week, and they asked if Magnus had heart. Magnus said, "Sure, I have heart." And Roode came out and said, "You have heart, but do you have killer instinct?" And it went on much longer than this, and the dialogue was really awful. And I just sat back, and this is not exclusive to TNA. Lord knows there's tons of bad dialogue in Raw and SmackDown too, but it's just one of those things where I sat back and thought, is there anyone who actually talks like these people are talking right now? Is there anything believable or realistic about this in any way? So it led to Jeff Hardy and Bobby Roode having a tables match. Jeff Hardy's goal in this tables match was, I believe, to die. He nearly succeeded several times. Got drop kicked really hard when he tried to put the table in the ring. Got clotheslined onto his head. And they both went through a table on the floor at the same time. And when both guys go through the table, it basically means neither one of them gets to have their fall broken. So I bet that sucked. And then he took several more hard bumps. And finally, after all this, he kicked Roode off the apron, and Roode went through a table on the floor. And so Jeff won. Aside from Jeff's severe beating, it was every tables match you ever saw.
Going back to the promo, I've mentioned this a few times now. I don't know what's going on. I don't know what it is about the respective products. But you get these Impact fans sitting there for any length of time, and there's a lot of dead air.
There was tons of dead air on the show.
I mean, my God, Magnus out there with Kurt Angle. Magnus is about to be the next TNA World Heavyweight Champion. And he's going back and forth, and the fans are just like silent. And again, I watch NXT, same state. They're all in the building for, like five tapings in a row, 5 shows in a row get taped. Long tapings. And man, babyfaces come out, those people go nuts. Heels come out, those people go nuts. They're into everything. They're so into it. And it's not crowd sweetening. These fans are into it.
No, you can see people jumping up and down and stuff on NXT.
But man, Impact, I mean, they haven't even been in the Impact Zone forever. They're coming back to the Impact Zone.
Yeah.
They haven't even been there for a while. But there's just something about it. There's something about the characters, or I don't know. But I mean, there are always going to be moments. I mean, it's not like it's dead air the whole time. I mean, they got into Jeff Hardy when he came out, and there were obviously spots on the show. I mean, they booed a lot when Ethan EC3 was doing his thing with the Hebners. But overall, I mean, there's a lot of stuff these people don't care one bit about, and that's kind of disconcerting, But yeah, they nearly killed themselves in this match.
Yeah. EC3 said he was challenging a first ballot Hall of Famer tonight.
I don't think Earl Hebner is in the Observer Hall of Fame.
Or any other Hall
or
of Fame.
Or the WWE Hall of Fame. Or the TNA Hall of Fame.
No. They had about 500 little short videos from their TNA 365 daily. Dixie had one from her home showing an email she had gotten from AJ Styles' agent saying that the World Championship will be shipped back to TNA and they would get it on this episode.
Earl Hebner is in 0 Halls of Fame.
EC3 came out. He said his opponent tonight had been in the ring with Andre the Giant, Hulk Hogan, and Bret Hart. And this man, his hand-picked opponent, was Earl Hebner. Earl said, "I'm not a wrestler, I'm just a ref." Ethan said, "That's okay, I've got another ref." And Rockstar Spud appeared, dragging Bryan Hebner down to the ring. And this is one of the moments where the crowd was dead for everything. They booed sporadically, but... So Ethan said, "Earl's going to lie down, I'm going to cover him, and then Bryan, you will count 3.
Seems like
It seems like a reasonable plan of action. And I have no idea why Earl would resist this or be upset. But Earl, didn't want to go down, even though he has counted men down thousands and thousands and thousands of times. So Ethan cut a scathing promo on him, said, "You go to the ground or I will put you in the ground forever." And Earl laid down, and Ethan put a finger in his chest, and Bryan Hebner counted the pinfall, and Bryan was like near the verge of tears. Like every time he slapped him out, it was like his dad was being punched in the face. And so Ethan won, and he ordered Bryan to raise his hand. And this is not much of a segment on paper, but I thought Ethan Carter was great here. An outstanding prick.
It was a good heel.
Yeah.
The one thing I didn't like about it is I just didn't understand why Earl didn't lay down.
What did Earl have to lose?
You're getting off easy, dude. The guy doesn't even want to beat you up.
No.
He doesn't want to punch you. He doesn't want to hurt you in any way. All he wants you to do is lay down, and he's going to pin you.
Lay down on this nice, soft, padded surface.
Why do you give a shit? Why does your son give a shit? Why would anyone give a shit? If I were Earl Hebner, I'd be like, all right, let's go. Great. Good work. You pinned me. Let's move on now.
Senior citizen non-wrestler.
Yeah. What, you think I'd be pissed off if Ethan Carter wanted to pin my dad? I'd be like, all right, lay down. Let's keep this easy. Don't put too much weight on him. 1, 2, 3. All right, let's move on.
Yeah.
Everyone's fine. No, this was a big,
a great insult.
I can only, well, I can't understand why. But yeah, he did get some heat.
He had bad influence backstage, laughing about humiliating Joe Park and saying they had photos from their last road trip. And that actually was explained by the end of the show. Samuel Shaw and Christy Hemme had a date. And for no particular reason, there were cameras there. So they got the bill, and then Christy went to the bathroom, and then when the waiter came back, Shaw put his hands all over him and said, "I caught you staring at my girl. You keep your hands off or I'll lay you out." I thought we were past the age of the jealous, possessive boyfriend gimmick, but apparently not.
No.
Dixie, apparently, on her own show, decided to air an AJ Dixie recap video going over the entire angle. And then her assistant came up and said, "We have a package for you." And she thought it was her belt, but instead it was flowers from a fan, and she was upset. Does seem what a ridiculous concept that is.
I was going to say, it was very clever.
Who dialed 1-800-Flowers and said, "Yes, please take this to D. Carter at the Impact Zone"?
They booked an angle where Dixie, the heel owner, is still so beloved that random fans send her flowers.
Yes.
Because she's so hot.
Yes.
And such a you know.
I did not realize how ridiculous this is until right now.
Yeah. I think it's awesome.
Bobby Roode cut a promo saying it was unfair. He was a wrestler who had been eliminated from a wrestling tournament because he had slipped and fallen through a table. And he has a point. That is a dumb way to be eliminated from a wrestling tournament.
I did laugh my ass off that
the heel is right.
Yeah.
He was treated unfairly.
Why the hell in a wrestling tournament for the wrestling championship is every match a goofy stip match based on the owner spinning a damn wheel?
I don't know.
He made a great point.
I don't know. Dixie announced they were doing Feast or Fired again.
God damn it.
This was one of the worst gimmicks of all time. If you're not familiar, it's like a battle royal. There's 4 briefcases the guys are fighting for. They don't know what's in the briefcase, but one is a world title match, one is a tag team title match, one has an X Division title match, and one has a pink slip and you get fired. And it begs the question, why would you ever even grab a briefcase?
Well, because I don't know why. You're going to end up with one because once you get a briefcase, then you're done. So, I mean, if you don't grab a briefcase, eventually there's just one left, and that's the one you get.
Well,
I guess the idea is you're taking, I don't know.
Are there only 4 guys in the match?
I think so.
No, that's different.
I don't know. I don't remember.
Last time they did this,
this match was so stupid, I can't even remember how it's done.
I actually do remember. They did last time they did this. They did do spots where guys like fight for the right to get a briefcase and then decide not to take it and jump back down.
I just... Is the storyline that Dixie is like a complete numbskull?
Apparently.
That she's completely incompetent?
Actually,
is that the storyline?
That's what AJ said, yes.
Because if that's the storyline, I think that's a bad storyline.
Yeah.
She's in charge of the company, and she's an idiot?
Yes.
What? I don't get it. I don't understand where
it
the
makes
positive in this.
Why would you want to risk losing a valuable employee in a match like this? And if they're not valuable, just fire them anyway.
What if you're like, really? You don't care any person in this match. It's like, let's say that I didn't like Alan Farrell. And so I decide I'm going to do a feast or fired with all of the radio hosts on this site. And one of them is going to get the briefcase. Maybe it'll be Alan. But there's no guarantee. Dave could get the briefcase.
That would be bad.
You could get the briefcase.
Yeah.
I could get the briefcase. Anybody could get it. So why would you put anybody in this match? Not to mention, what the hell is the X Division? Is it weight limits or is it no limits? Last I heard it was weight limits. But who's in this match? Is everybody in this match below the cruiserweight?
Perhaps Hernandez will get an X Division shot.
Yeah, what if Hernandez is in the match and he gets that X Division shot? That's not fair. And this is a Vince Russo gimmick. Vince Russo came up with this idea. It sucks.
It does suck.
Why are we doing it in 2013?
Don't have a good answer to that.
Very upset about Feast or Fired.
Bad Influence came out for a promo.
This was good.
They claimed to know the truth about Joseph Park, and they were going to reveal it. Park himself came out to interrupt. He said, look, guys, all kidding aside, you need to stop.
Oh, really? The funny thing about this is go on.
He said, maybe I was never meant to be more than an attorney. And they laughed and said, we have some evidence about that, and held up an envelope. And Park grabbed the envelope and tore it up. And they laughed more and said, dummy, we made copies of all that. So here's a video. And the video was Kazarian and Daniels flying themselves to Chicago. First class, they noted. Because they are, in fact, big stars. They went via Joseph Park's business card to the offices of Park in Chicago. And what they found when they arrived was that the room that's supposed to be Joe Park's office was cleaned out and empty. And the office next to it was also cleaned out and empty. And they went to the lady at the desk and she said, well, that used to be a doctor's office, but he moved out. Now they're even more confused. So she looked it up, and this lady determined that Parks, as she called them, had closed 13 years ago with no forwarding address.
Yeah.
Bad Influence was confused, and they left. So back in the ring, Daniels demanded to know what Park had been doing for 13 years, because clearly he had not been dieting or working out. Joe, beside himself, said, listen, as human beings, please leave me alone. He should have just said, you wouldn't like me when I'm angry. He started to go. They pulled him back. They spat gum in his face, took him down, put the boots to him. Then Eric Young ran out, chased them away. He gave them a warning. Keep knocking on the devil's door, and the devil's going to answer. He challenged them to a tag match next week, them against himself and Park. They accepted and were happy. Joe Park was very confused and bewildered. That was that. This was great.
I did really like this. However, maybe there will be a twist of some sort, and it will make sense in the end. But aside from the bullying of Joe Park and the references to him being fat, because I do not approve of people making fun of other people's weight.
No.
But aside from that, I mean, Joe Park is a liar. He's been lying.
Yeah. Yes.
These heels, they were sick of this facade, and so they went out of their way to do an investigation on the level. They bought their own plane tickets. They flew out.
First class.
Yeah. And they did an investigation, and they found out, in fact, that this guy is a liar. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. I mean, there were actually some people that booed. I'm not even sure if they were booing Joe Park or if they were booing that Joe Park had been, if the heels had blown his cover. I'm not sure what they were booing about. But when the audience heard that Park, or Parks and Parks had been shut down for 13 years, they booed.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess we'll see where this goes. But I did think that, even though he is a liar, he did come off. Joe Park did a fabulous job playing a sympathetic character that just wanted this all to go away. I thought he was very good. Now, the one thing, I don't know if I mentioned this a couple of weeks ago, but they did the deal where they poured blood on Joe Park. Remember this? They poured paint on him.
And he did not snap.
I presume it was paint. I mean, I don't think they went to a blood bank and got a bucket full of blood to pour on the guy.
You can do that.
I don't think that's...
You can go to a butcher, but...
So what baffled me was the announcers just couldn't figure this out. Why isn't he snapping? Hello? He snaps when he sees his own blood.
Yeah.
It's not when red paint gets thrown on him. Hopefully that is explained as well. It actually made sense for him not to freak out when paint was put on him. But the announcers were just completely baffled why he didn't snap when paint was put on him. So anyway, I did like this segment.
Sting met with Magnus.
This was great.
Gave him a pep talk and wished him luck.
Actually, no, the segment later was great.
Well, this is great in its own way, because if you wrote down what they said, it was a very simple, it was just like I say, it was a pep talk and a congratulatory thing and a guy wishing his former partner luck. But their delivery, there was so much just subtle hints of mistrust that were fantastic. But at the end of the day, Sting walked out and went about his business.
Yes.
Rockstar Spud, who, by the way, did I mention him earlier? He was involved in the Ethan Carter segment of getting Bryan down in the ring. He was a great part of that, too. In fact, he is fantastic in this role of being Dixie's assistant and the guy who's very excited about all the evil things he gets to do. So he learned the belt had arrived in the building, and he was very excited. Gunstorm versus my new favorite act in wrestling, the Bromans.
This is legit the best act in all of wrestling.
So Gunstorm beat them up for, 2 minutes. And after 2 minutes, Robbie hit a punch. He punched James Storm, I think, one time.
Yeah.
And after this punch, Zema Ion was so happy he hit the air horn like 5 times.
This act is just amazing.
I laughed so hard.
I don't know if Zema Ion is like a DJ in real life, but goddamn, he should be.
Yes.
He's great. And this act is just... It's so incredible to just watch the bromans and when I heard that Zema Ion was being added to the bromans, before I saw it, I just read the spoilers. I was like, what? Zema Ion is one of the bromans.
Hairspray dude,
Can
yes.
You found a way to screw this up. That's amazing. But no! He has completed this act.
Yeah.
This act it's synergy. It is significantly better than the parts combined. It is whatever the synergy definition is. But that's what this is. And it's amazing because it's so absolutely awesome. And then I think back to how badly people wanted to cheer and love Zack Ryder. And WWE just told the fans, screw you.
Yeah.
And now here's the Jersey Shore crew with Zema Ion and his air horn, and it's so awesome. I love these men.
So they had a fun match. It was not very long. Storm appeared to have won the match, and I believe the titles as well. He hit a super kick on Robbie and made the cover. But as he did this, Jesse ran across the ring and spat beer into Gunner's face. And Gunner snapped and tore into him, and the ref tried to break up that brawl. Meanwhile, Storm is lying on top of Robbie, waiting for a pinfall. And finally, Gunner could take no more, and he threw the ref down, and that's a disqualification.
Mm-hmm.
So the Bromans won via DQ. Storm, as you can imagine, was not happy with his tag team partner. Sting had an amazing segment with Rockstar Spud.
This was awesome.
Sting was about to go into Kurt Angle's locker room when Spud arrived. He demanded to know where he was going, and in fact, who are you? To which Sting said, quote, I'm Sting. I'm sure you've heard my albums. So, to make a long story short, Spud was pulling rank here, saying that he was Dixie's personal assistant or chief of staff, whatever his title was.
Chief of staff.
Yeah. And basically went on a power trip.
Can you give him a British title?
Said Sting had to go. And he was trying to be very nice about it in a polite British manner. But then he received a note saying that AJ's package again had arrived and he had to go. And he just turned to Sting and he said, leave. And then Rockstar Spud left. And Sting looked around. He looked at Kurt's door. And he shouted out, what is going on? And then he left.
That's the only thing wrong with this segment. He left.
He obeyed.
Go in the goddamn room, you idiots.
Yes.
Sting was awesome. They were both awesome.
Yes.
But Sting was like, Sting was every wrestler that you've ever met dealing with a geek in the back.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
It's exactly what this was.
Yes.
You know how many times in his life Sting has had to deal with one of these geeks?
Yeah.
And he got to live it out here on television with Spud.
He did.
And Spud was every annoying geek that runs a ship backstage at a wrestling show.
Yeah.
You know?
Mm-hmm.
Both men were absolutely perfect in this role. This was great. I loved this segment.
Gail Kim and her husband, I believe for the first time he appeared on Impact.
Yes, Robert Irvine.
Yes. They
all jacked up.
They cut a promo together on the pathetic challengers that were arriving to accept Gail's challenge. And basically Robert said, get better competition or stop wasting our time. And this will surprise no one who has seen his show, but Robert Irvine is a great heel.
Robert Irvine. The show should be Robert Irvine Heel Chef. And he's there trying to mentor a chef, but he's constantly telling them, it's a pinch of salt! And just shouting them down.
Have you watched the show?
No.
I'm sure I mentioned this before, but Robert Irvine on that show is Tim Flowers with a British accent. He has the same posture. He has the same glasses.
He does look like Tim.
He's moves the same, talks the same, looks the same. And when he's laying down the law, he explains to people there's going to be some changes. And if you don't like it, there's the door.
No.
Yeah.
No.
It's amazing.
I got to watch his show. I've never been so excited.
Chris Sabin cut a promo. It was a selfie promo. He was holding a cell phone, pointing it at the mirror and recording himself. And behind him, of course, was the lovely Velvet Sky, who was all preening and posing. And Sabin explained that his loss to Hardy in the tournament had been his low point. But then he said, you gave me faith in myself. You gave me the faith I could go on. And faith I could beat Austin Aries next week. And then it turns out, of course, he was not talking about Velvet. He was talking about his X Division title.
I got to get into this Robert Irvine guy. I knew about Dinner Impossible and Restaurant Impossible, but I was unaware of Worst Cooks in America.
I have not seen that one.
Worst Cooks in America. This sounds amazing. Where is he right now? The next Iron Chef. On November 3rd. Oh, just started. No wonder he was on.
Aha.
A new Food Network series called Restaurant Express. In this series, Irvine will challenge 9 chefs to a series of tests for a chance to open a restaurant in a Las Vegas spa and casino. They should have called it Robert Irvine Heel Chef. That's way better than Restaurant Express.
So then the lovely Gail Kim had a squash match against Laura Dennis, who is from Toronto, apparently. She is not particularly good at wrestling, as was very evident during her comeback.
Cute, but...
And by the way, why in TNA squash matches does the person being squashed get offense?
Well, at least in the case of Ethan Carter, the idea is supposed to be that he's really not very good.
Right.
But in the case of Gail Kim, I don't have an explanation for you.
So Gail cut off the offense of Laura Dennis, and it beat her with Eat Defeat. And she and Lady Tapa went to beat her up more, and then ODB ran out and cleared the ring. She tried to clothesline Tapa over the top rope to the floor, and on a pass-fail grading method, this was a pass. Because she did, in fact, go over and land on her feet.
She got a D.
Yeah.
I wouldn't give her an F, but I wouldn't call it average.
No.
It was a D.
It was bad. Needs improvement.
You know, I gotta say, I don't know what I gotta say. I forgot. Gail Kim. Oh, Eat Defeat. That's a great name for that move. It's a perfect name. Eat Defeat. Eat the feet. It's perfect.
You just figured this out?
No, I'm just pointing it out because they're not going to give Xavier Woods eat defeat.
Right.
But Lost in the Woods?
That's
really?
That's worse.
Best in the Woods?
What? Either way.
Both bad. Eat defeat is great.
Main event was Magnus versus Kurt Angle in the other semifinal. This was, for no good reason, a Falls Count Anywhere match. And because they couldn't do near falls, they started teasing countouts and knockouts like 2 minutes in. So getting standing 10 counts after 120 seconds of action. This match was very, very, very slow. So Kurt hit a bunch of German suplexes. He teased one off the apron. By the way, Kurt Angle in this match, a very distressing shade of purplish red.
He's very red. That's not good.
No, it's not. This is not good.
I did like when they said the action was heating up right at the moment where the action slowed to a crawl.
As they were both just laying there.
I did like that. I laughed.
So Magnus hit a Cactus Jack elbow off the apron. Crowd was trying so hard to get themselves excited about this. Kurt missed a moonsault in which he basically jumped very, very high straight up into the air. Very nearly came down and hit the ropes.
Not good.
No. So Magnus hit basically a rock bottom and then the top rope elbow. Angle got up from that. And then the ref got bumped here in this last man standing match. So Kurt hits the Angle slam but no ref. And then Bobby Roode ran down. And he hit the rabbit lariat and then an FU.
Yes.
An attitude adjustment.
Hit him with the AA.
He hit John Cena's finish.
One of John Cena's only 10 moves.
Yes.
13 moves.
Yes. Then he ran away, and the ref came to and started counting. Now let's review. Angle took an AA. Magnus took an Angle slam.
Mm-hmm.
And then had another 20 seconds or so to rest. So the ref is counting them both down. And just as he gets to 10, Magnus gets to his feet very briefly. The match is over, and then Magnus collapses. This finish was kind of silly. So it is, after weeks and weeks of build to Roode, Angle, we're getting Hardy and Magnus in the finals.
Yeah.
TNA, everybody. So Roode attacked Angle more. Hardy ran out to make the save, and then Hardy and Magnus had a stare down. Backstage, Dixie and Spud.
By the way, for those keeping track in the tournament, the finals involve a guy who won because his opponent fell through a table, and a guy who won because his guy couldn't get up.
It's not... You know what? This is better than most TNA tournaments.
That is true.
If you back over the history of the company.
It's much better.
Much better. Greater than 50% for sure.
With that said... A guy fell through a table.
That is faint praise.
And a guy couldn't get to his feet after an FU.
Yeah. So Dixie and Spud were very happy about this turn of events. They were pleased with the Hardy Magnus finals. And then they had the box there that was supposed to contain their world title. And when they opened it, it was a toy version of the belt. And Dixie was distraught, and she left the belt in Rockstar Spud's hands. And the funny thing was, in his hands, it fit. He's very, very small. So right after that, what should be theoretically the end of Impact, we got the Friends of AJ commercial. This was great. It was AJ talking to the camera, cutting a promo, gloating about how Dixie did not have her belt after all. The world title, he said, is still with the world champion. And if you want it, you're going to have to come to Gainesville and go through me and my friends to get it. And that was the end. That was a good finish to a fun show.
I did like this Friends of AJ. I wish they had something better than just Friends of AJ. I don't know what it could be. Maybe, I don't know how you could do it. Maybe if AJ had a sponsor or something like that had been on his, Jack's Hot Links or something like that he'd had on his gear for a while, and then they were sponsoring that. I don't know. This doesn't really matter. Friends of AJ is just, it's too vague. And it seems like too much of just like an easy plot device. But maybe the Friends of AJ will eventually be revealed. Maybe it'll be the Main Event Mafia back together. I don't know.
The highlight of the show.
You want to know why? Because there was no bromance.
There were no bromans in the show. Is that why Lance hates me, by the way? I like the bromance.
No, does he hate you now?
I thought he hated me.
He doesn't like the bromance.
Yeah. So I hated. He hated our review.
Well, you know.
Because we like the bromance.
Sure.
Because they're great, and they were not on the show. Best part of the show was actually Rockstar Spud driving around Gainesville, Georgia, in search of AJ Styles and his championship belt. Borash was in the ring. We just saw Spud driving around with a map explaining why he was there.
He was going to Gainesville.
Yeah. Borash was in the ring with the briefcases for Feast or Fired, the worst and stupidest gimmick match of all time. Then he was about to spin the wheel of Dixie to determine the stiffs for the championship final when an enraged Kurt Angle hit the ring, threw Borash out, threw all the furniture around. He called out Bobby Roode. I should point out that the heat for the match between Roode and Angle, who are not in the tournament anymore, it's a much hotter match than Magnus and Hardy, which is in fact the finals.
Yeah.
TNA, everybody. So Angle wanted to fight right now, and Roode said no, and Angle said, I can beat you twice in one night. And then they had a brawl, and I looked up, and Angle was on his back grabbing his nuts, and Al Snow and all the other agents were there. And Roode challenged him to a best of 3 falls match at Final Resolution. We had a video recap of Bad Influence messing with Joseph Park. We saw Park and Eric Young preparing for their match. Park was concerned. Young was confident and said he had a plan. And in hindsight, this plan is hilarious.
Hell of a plan.
So we had the match. Bad Influence versus Park and Eric Young. Taz went on the record as saying Feast or Fired was stupid. Wasn't his exact words, but he said he didn't like it. And I am
not a fan.
I assume he didn't like it because it was stupid. Park was reluctant to tag in. Then when he did, he was not terribly effective. So Bad Influence cut Park off, and they're working him over, and not even so much trying to put him away and finish him, just slapping him and humiliating him. And Park looks like he wants to cry. And finally, Young hits the ring. He clears both heels out of there, and he's screaming at Park to fight back and fight for himself, and Park just has given up and won't do it. And so then Eric Young takes action on his plan. His plan is to grab Park in a headlock and punch him in the face until he starts to bleed.
Shoot.
Yeah.
A shoot punch to the face.
Yep.
The old knuckle to the forehead, busted him open. Probably as easy with all that scar tissue, won't lie.
Yeah. So Park came up bleeding and confused. Why are you hitting me? And then Eric Young rubbed the blood on his hand, and he showed his hand to Park. And he said the word that only Eric Young uses. Look it.
Look it.
This is not a word.
Look it.
So this made Park snap, and he turned into Abyss. He hit all of his moves, and he pinned Kaz with a black hole slam. There was a shot of Joe Park breathing hard and essentially spitting up blood. It was pretty amazing. So then Park returned to normal, and Eric took it upon himself to break the news. The reason you have not been able to find Abyss is because you are Abyss.
That's right.
Park refused to believe this. Not a ridiculous possibility. The fans told him he was Abyss.
The spoilers, from my understanding, were... the reports we got from the spoilers were that they revealed that Joe Park is Abyss, which isn't exactly what happened. Eric has concluded that Joe Park is Abyss, and Joe Park refuses to believe this. He's baffled. Now, the only problem with the storyline is EY says the reason you can't find your brother is because you're him. And the problem is, on at least, I believe, 2 occasions, Joe Park and Abyss have been in the same building at the same time. The same place at the same time at least once. So I don't know how they're going to explain that in the end.
To say that Park and his delusions hired somebody to play Abyss.
I see.
Done.
Local indie guy?
Yeah. Some big fat dude. Be Abyss. EC3 cut a promo while getting a massage. He vowed to make social media explode. I assume he failed.
I didn't understand. I was It's just like, what does that mean? You're going to make social media explode. Then, believe it or not, when the storyline was that he was going to kill Jeremy Borash, I was like, he's right. If there is a way to make social media explode, it's to kill Jeremy Borash.
So, yes, he came out and announced that Borash was going to be his opponent tonight. Point being that Borash, I guess, is in charge of TNA's Twitter.
And everything.
So, before this could happen, Sting came out. He started sarcastically calling Ethan a shooting star, talked about hooking himself to Ethan's belt buckle and riding straight to the stratosphere. Then said, look, you've done nothing in this business. You think you're a star because of your last name because they made a wacky video for you. He dared Ethan to accomplish something. Either man up and fight in Feast or Fire tonight, or you can fight me right now. And Ethan accepted. He teased a fight and then said, I'm going to be in Feast or Fire. And he backed down.
Have they any time in the recent past made it clear that Feast or Fire is an open, I don't even know what you call it, tournament, what you'd call it?
There were many instances on the show of guys throwing their own hat in the ring.
Sure.
And
is it just completely open?
Could I be in it if I wanted to?
Exactly. Here's why
I really do have nothing to lose.
Here's why I hate Feast or Famine. Because the idea that if I owned a company, I mentioned this last week, if I owned a company and had a lot of employees that were good enough to have not been fired yet, then the idea of doing a match where I would be forced to fire one of them,
right?
My biggest star could go in there, and I'd be forced to fire him. So it's stupid.
What if Magnus had thrown himself into Feast or Fire and then gotten fired and ruined the tournament final?
Exactly.
We wouldn't want that. And at the same time, if you've got a bunch of employees and, frankly, you don't mind firing one of them, why do you want one of these geeks getting a title shot?
Yeah.
None of this makes a goddamn lick of sense. Unless you just don't care what happens to your company.
Now, I could understand if it were something like, we've got these rankings. If you're in the top 10, you're allowed to enter this tournament if you like. And there are 3 title shots on the line, and there's one briefcase that contains a punishment of some sort. But it shouldn't be that you are fired.
No.
Maybe it's you must leave town for 30 days without pay.
Sure.
Put something on the line.
Wrestle
so it's a gamble. If anybody believed anything in wrestling, they could be like, there is no bad briefcase, but you have to put in $50,000 to get into the tournament in the first place. So if you get something, good for you. If you don't, you're out your money. Something gambling related. But the idea that you're putting your career on the line is just, to me, ridiculous. But I do like the idea that, there is something to the idea of there are briefcases, you get a briefcase, you don't know what's in the briefcase, there's the drama of who gets what. That's all good. But there should be a way to do it where the company doesn't look stupid for allowing the match to happen.
Spud was back in Georgia. He was reading a map looking for a petrol station.
Did we finish that Sting segment, by the way?
Yeah. Ethan agreed to be in Feast or Fired.
I see.
And that made you go on your rant. So he found a gas station, found a guy working there and said, look, I'm looking for AJ Styles. And the gas station, of course, knew who AJ was. So he likes to hang out in a bar about a mile down the road. Gail Kim came out for her open challenge. And then ODB came out and said she was not there to fight Gail. She was there to fight Lady Tapa. And they brawled. ODB got overwhelmed because there was two heels. And then Madison Rayne came back just all in black with red hair. And she evened the odds, and they sent the heels packing. Spud arrived at an American pub, as he called it. He approached the bartender, who cannot possibly have left the house thinking she was going to be on national TV that day. He asked this bartender if she knew where to find Alan Jones. He ordered a drink called a Ladyboy Chaser.
Greatest name for a drink I've ever heard.
Especially in this scenario.
You're going to have a Ladyboy Chaser at the Christmas show. I'm not sure what it is, but I have this show on tape, and
he gave the recipe.
Spud explained it.
All right,
Ladyboy Chaser.
If you put it together, I will consume the Ladyboy Chaser. So she put like a lemon in a beer and handed it to him. Spud, by the way, I think I mentioned this last week. Spud's really good.
He is an awesome, diminutive English lackey.
Yes, I was going to say lackey.
Perfect.
He's pretentious.
It's perfect in the role.
Outraged by everything. So they went to commercial, and they came
1,000 times better than, I know everybody, not everybody. We have a fair number of the people on our board who just love Brad Maddox. This guy does it right.
Spud's better.
Way better.
Yeah. So Spud interrupted the band that was performing in the bar. He asked if anyone knew Alan Jones or AJ Styles. I'm just over the whole real name thing. It's just stupid. So the redneck said, "We don't know where you are, but you're at the microphone. Now you must sing a song."
Wait a second. Alan Jones, I have no problem with that because that's what the AJ in AJ Styles stands for. It's not like he's got one name on television, but then a real name that people reference. You know?
Why should he just be AJ Styles? Just call him by his name.
Well, you never know. He may not walk around town being called AJ. He didn't walk around town in a velour suit. I don't think.
So, yeah, Spud's at the mic, and they all saying he had to sing a song now, and he very sheepishly said, no, I can't do that. Come on now. And I said, well, I am a rock star. And he did a horrible rendition of God Save the Queen. I don't think these are the real lyrics that he was singing.
God Save the Queen. Do you know what I mean?
I believe that's it. And then
I think that was his lyrics.
That about 8 times.
Yes, I do know what you mean, Spud.
Eventually, they kicked him out of the bar.
Like it was a difficult question or statement.
Yeah. I will admit this. I love Spud throughout the show. This segment went too long. I have video explaining the rules for Feast or Fired. It's not complicated, but I shall go over them for you. There's 4 briefcases the guys are fighting for. They don't know what's in the briefcase until after the match. But one briefcase gets a world title shot, one gets a tag team title shot, one gets an X Division title shot, and one gets the dude fired. Gunner apologized to Storm for costing the title match last week. Storm listed the myriad disagreements they've had. It is long past time for this team to break up when you put it this way. How week by week something else terrible happens to them. So he said, look, we're going to put it all behind us. We're going to get some title shots tonight. Gunner said, yep, or we could be fired. That's why this is stupid. Dixie came out for, I don't think there's any question, this was her best segment ever. Dixie was outraged.
Yes.
She was appalled, infuriated by Kurt Angle. Because he had come out earlier, he had destroyed the wheel of Dixie and left her with nothing.
Left her, that's all she had, everyone. In the world was her wheel of Dixie.
Yes.
I've been in love with the wheel of Dixie since the day it debuted. She had a wheel made with matches on it. And she was so proud of the wheel that she named the wheel after herself. The Wheel of Dixie. And it's not like it was a intricately created, diamond-studded, Wheel of Fortune size wheel.
This was...
I have a wheel like this. We use it at the jiu-jitsu school when we go to these little fairs. You spin the wheel to see if you can win 1 free week or 2. It's a tiny little wooden wheel, and that's exactly what the Wheel of Dixie was. But she was so proud of this wheel, and it was destroyed. Everything she had, destroyed.
So, she booked Roode and Angle in a best of 3 falls match for, I think it's next week.
This was also a great line. She said, I will allow Roode versus Angle, but I make the stips.
Yes.
It's best of 3 falls.
Yes.
It was their stip.
That's true. You put that better than I did. So then she brought Magnus and Hardy down to the ring. And Hardy gave his usual speech about how the creatures would help him win. And then Magnus put Hardy over like $1 million. Said Hardy's success was the reason Magnus could put food on the table in this business. Said Hardy was the #1 guy in the company, but that just made him the guy that Magnus had to beat.
Total babyface promo.
Yeah. So then Dixie said, because there was no Wheel of Dixie, they were going to have a Dixieland match.
No, she said the wheel is gone, but there was only one match left on the wheel anyway.
Oh.
And it was a Dixieland match.
Mm-hmm. And they got to a video. Made it very, very melodramatic. including a point where the wrestlers would have to crawl, and I quote, the walls of despair.
This was awesome.
This is poetry. So the gimmick is it's a steel cage match, and you have to climb over the fence, escape the cage, and then go up the ramp, and then there's a ladder on the stage which you have to climb and get the belt.
You know, Russo was the king of trying to invent new matches never seen before.
Mm-hmm.
And it always drove me nuts because, I mean, come on. It's been 110 years or whatever. I mean, whatever matches there are, you know, these are the matches. You're not going to invent a new match that is any good. The best matches already exist. But at least this match was a simple new match.
It is very simple.
You get out of the cage, and then you climb a ladder and get the belt.
Yeah.
Fine. It doesn't take 3 pages to explain.
No. So, I agreed with you. This seemed straightforward and simple. It was not stupid like the Feast of Fire match. Then they cut to Hardy, and Hardy looked like he had never heard of anything so stupid in his entire pro wrestling career. He had zero interest in participating in this goofball Dixieland match.
I think there may be weapons, too. I'm not sure.
Maybe. Point being, really, it's a ladder match with the ladder on the stage, and they start in the ring in a cage. But it's still, whoever climbs the ladder and wins. Then Dixie said the winner, whoever it was, will be spending long days and nights representing her company. She invited them to join her VIP table tonight. She said something along the lines of like, my office door is always open. And your wife from the kitchen shouted, and so are your legs.
Did she?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. She did not stick around to see the finish here. So Dixie left, and both dudes were just left in the ring looking confused.
You know what I did think was funny? Even though it's fake, and actually in UFC and any other sports organization, when you're the champion, you do have a lot of things to do.
Sure.
You've got to go and represent the company, and you've got to go on television shows and do interviews and all the stuff that the champion has to do as a representative of the company. This is something that you have to do in pro wrestling and WWE. If you're the WWE champion, this is expected of you. If you have a championship in UFC, you're often asked to do the same thing. So here in TNA, Dixie Carter makes the same request of her champion. You will be representing this company. It's going to be very, very busy. You know, it's like John Cena. You're going to be there 300 days a year. You're going to have to be going to all these things, and you're going to have to be a representative as the TNA World Heavyweight Champion. And they cut to Jeff Hardy, and he's just like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
I thought I just got the belt. Just absolutely outraged that he would have to do extra work as champion.
Outside of the normal brutal TNA schedule of going to Orlando for a couple days a month. Chris Sabin and Velvet Sky had a short, wacky meeting. I thought to myself, I don't know what the point of that was, except to put Velvet in a tight dress on TV. Then I realized that is the point.
That's the point.
And that's an excellent point.
Yeah.
That is an excellent point. So then Rockstar Spud decided it would be a good idea to try to break into AJ Styles' house. He used a credit card to open the door. Much to his own surprise, this actually worked. He was creeping around AJ's living room, I guess. There was a deer head on the floor, along with a guitar. And then, much to Spud's surprise, he actually found the TNA Championship belt sitting there on the living room table. And for a brief second, he grabbed the belt, and then he forgot why he was there, and he began to imagine what it would be like if Rockstar Spud was the TNA champion. He held the belt and he smiled, and then AJ just sauntered downstairs.
Yeah.
He sat down next to Spud. He calmly said, "Did you really think a little British guy could poke around to Gainesville, throw my name around, and I wouldn't hear about it? I knew you were coming. That's why I left the door unlocked." He was very friendly. He invited Spud to go fishing. And then Spud tried to run away with the belt, and AJ just stopped him, and he grabbed the belt. Spud left, and AJ locked the door, and that was that.
Should have asked him to go fishing and then said, "You'll be the bait."
The little worm.
I do like, one thing I did like about this whole thing is in TNA storyline, AJ Styles is a big shot in Gainesville, Georgia.
Yes.
Everybody knows him.
Everyone knew his name.
He's a big star, and nothing gets around in this town without him hearing about it.
Yes.
Great.
It's amazing in pro wrestling these days, but yes. Yes, he is
He's not just a geek, barely making a living.
No. He is a hometown hero.
Yes.
Chris Sabin versus Austin Aries in a match and follow-up that left me bewildered. First of all, if you just told me Chris Sabin was wrestling Austin Aries, I would think, well, that's going to be really, really good. That's one of the best matches they can promote. I would be really excited to see that. And unless I missed something, and we did do a lot of fast-forwarding, but I don't think they even advertised this match one time. So, this is a match for the X Division title that went 5 minutes or less. It had no near falls, had no real drama, no real tension, no real swings of momentum, just two guys doing moves. And Sabin dragged Velvet onto the apron. He tried to win with a roll-up. Aries kicked him off. Sabin nearly bonked into Velvet, threw on the brakes. Then he turned around and Aries grabbed him and hit a brainbuster to win the X title. This was the least dramatic championship match I think I've ever seen.
It was quick, and the best part about it was, in fact, Velvet.
Velvet in her blue dress, yes. So, then it got worse. After commercial, Sabin and Velvet are backstage, and Sabin he's not infuriated, he's not outraged, he's not in despair, he's not climbing the walls of despair, he's annoyed. And he's annoyed like he ordered a pepperoni pizza and they brought him a sausage pizza. That's how he's reacting to losing a championship.
Yeah.
So then Aries walks by and they went back and forth, and they both decided to enter Feast or Fired, and Aries also threatened to steal Sabin's girl, which if you can pull it off, I highly recommend. Mr. Anderson came out to do his entrance. This was a stupid show. The more I realize this, the more I look over this show was bad. Anderson came out to do his normal entrance, and as he's speaking, Bully Ray slowly, calmly walks up behind him and lays him out. No one does anything. No one warns Anderson. No one saves him. They just let this all happen.
Actually, wasn't Anderson like the first guy out?
The cameraman was there.
Well, what the hell is a cameraman going to do? They never help anybody.
Yes. It was just funny, I thought. So then Anderson grabs Ray grabs the mic. First he hits a pile driver on the stage. Then he grabs the mic. And then scary music starts to play.
This infuriated me.
And then Bully Ray cuts a promo.
Remember when WWE used to do this?
Yeah.
It was stupid then, and it's stupid now.
This is stupider. Because that's...
No. It's equally stupid, no matter where it's at.
It's not the where, it's the who. The scary music in WWE was for Kane. Kane's a monster. His gimmick is that he's a monster. So if he wants to speak with scary music and red lights, all right. At least he's supposed to be not human. Bully Ray, his gimmick is that he's a fat guy from Hell's Kitchen. Why are they playing scary music for him? So
I think it was just supposed to be dramatic.
Cuts a promo straight out of the Book of Revelations. He's talking about destroyed cities and blood-stained streets, and he who is fear. And finally, he said that Anderson's wife was pregnant with twins, and he, meaning himself, would be responsible for the twins' future.
Not a fan of this turn.
This is dumb.
Bully Ray's one of the best promos in this business. And now he's a poet.
He's a preacher. I don't know what he is. A prophet. So, speaking of stupid, it was time for Feast or Fired. All right, we went over the steps earlier. 4 briefcases, 3 good news, 1 bad news. And we talked about how no one with a brain would actually want to be in this match. The risk far, far, far outweighs the reward. So there's a bunch of guys out there, maybe a dozen or so. Most of them, well, a lot of them we already talked about. Aries is there. Sabin's there. Samoa Joe is out there. Chavo and Hernandez and Gunstorm are both out there. Also, Curryman. The bell rings, and Curryman looks around and says, if I grab a briefcase, it might result in me getting fired.
Didn't Curryman get fired in this very match a few years ago?
He might have.
I'm positive he did.
He might have.
So what the hell is he doing back?
He did, and they showed him.
Yeah. There was video footage of this.
So Curryman has in fact learned his lesson. Because Curryman walked the fuck out.
You know what's the most infuriating about that? Is by putting Curryman in this match, you killed the stipulation. You put a man who had been fired in the feast or fired match.
Yes. Well, there's that too. There is the fact that they killed the stipulation.
No,
being
that's
fired.
the biggest issue.
I disagree. I think the biggest issue is that Curryman, and think about Curryman. Curryman is the only guy smart enough to realize that being in this match makes no sense.
Well, he'd been fired once.
Curryman is the smartest guy in TNA. Everyone else is stupid.
I mean, the guy got let back. Why risk it again?
There is no good reason to risk it again, so he left. Everyone else should have followed his lead. Samoa Joe should have said, I'm going with Curryman. James Storm should have said, I don't want to get fired. I'm leaving. So, wrestled a lot. Did a big dive spot. Norv Furnham and Dewey Barnes were in this, potentially earning world championship matches. They were collectively referred to as the Nerds.
Yeah.
The way you would say the Road Warriors or the Rock and Roll Express.
Taz referred to them as those nerds.
TNA called them the Nerds.
Yeah.
So Zema Ion grabbed a briefcase. Oh, EC3 grabbed a briefcase first.
Yeah.
Then Zema Ion got one. Then Chavo and Hernandez worked together to get one. And they said this was their plan to get a tag team title shot. Hey, I got an idea. Win a bunch of tag team matches.
That doesn't work in TNA.
So finally, there was one briefcase left, and Storm was reaching up to grab it when who should lay him out from behind but Gunner.
Gunner.
I pray this means their team's broken up now.
I should hope so. He crotched him on the top rope and cost him a briefcase.
Hit him in the dick, yes. So Gunner got a briefcase. And this was your
faith you have in this company, Vinny. This might not be a heel turn.
You never know.
This might be explained away as a simple misunderstanding. I'm sorry I split your legs and caused your balls to be crushed on a turnbuckle and then stole a briefcase out from underneath you.
He's going to say it's every man for himself.
I swear.
So this was your average battle royal, only it didn't even have a climactic finish because really no one knows which of these briefcases was the bad news here anyway.
Hey, at least the briefcases were won on free television, and they'll be open on free television, as opposed to in the old days when you had to pay $34.95, but then they got the briefcases, and you had to go to free TV to find out who got
that's
what.
That's right. They did do that.
Yeah, they did. Yes, they did.
So then the show ended, and Jeff Hardy arrived for a secret meeting with Dixie, and she closed the blinds, and she ordered him some wine, and that's how it ended.
Wine?
Wine.
Shouldn't be drinking wine. Come on now. There's a great train wreck spot with everyone doing their wacky dives. That was good. That's how EC3 got his briefcase. Every single person did a dive.
Yeah.
Including the Nerds. And when it was his turn, he ran over and got a briefcase. So at least he's smart.
Not as smart as Curry, man.
That's true.
Oh, well, man. You'd argue that he knows he's bulletproof, but anyway. I didn't like Impact.
Yeah, you win some, you lose some. This was not as good as last week. And no goddamn bromance. By the way, since we mentioned it a couple of weeks ago, Zema Ion, I've been alerted by several, is in fact a DJ in real life. So there you go. Kind of funny that the wrestlers I refer to in real life for other jobs. Tells you something about Impact right there. Mm-hmm. Not Impact, really, but TNA. Impact Wrestling. All right.
Well,
you get started in Impact. I'm going to
great heights.
Send some emails.
We're going to go to some deep depths. I thought Impact was horrible this week. I'll get into it. Magnus met with Yusuf backstage. Yusuf is a random TNA backstage guy. Magnus said he was looking for Dixie and Spud, When he found out they were not there, he said he was going to go to the ring for a promo. Then he came to the ring for a promo. I have no idea what the backstage segment with Yusuf accomplished. So Magnus is cutting this promo, and my first impression of this was they've been in this new Impact zone now for, I don't know, I guess a couple of months. But this sounded like there were maybe 24 people in the building. Because when they cheered, it was mic'd well, and the cheer sounded okay. But when they stopped cheering, it was the quietest building. It was eerie as they listened to what Magnus said. So Magnus said for many years he'd been working and living in the United States. And he had learned that in this country, money talks. But he still said he was all about honor and dignity and respect. And he just said each of these words, there was a little old lady sitting over her shoulder who nodded in affirmation. She approved of these morals. So eventually he accused Jeff Hardy of being greedy because Jeff had met with Dixie for drinks. He vowed Jeff would not fool him. At this point, Jeff came out. He was outraged. He insisted that Magnus did not know what he was talking about. So Magnus said, "We all know about Jeff's history, and I assume he was talking about many years of drug abuse." But no. Magnus said that by history he meant that he remembered 10, 10, 10. Because I'm sure what every fan in TNA is thinking of is what happened in this company more than 3 years ago.
You know, I was fixing to be infuriated. But then they actually explained what happened on 10-10-10.
Kind of.
When they first mentioned it, I thought, was that the day that Jeff showed up inebriated? I honestly thought that's what it was. But then they mentioned that he turned heel. So they did actually explain it, believe it or not.
What they said was he had sold out for the world title. They didn't really say what that meant, and they never showed it throughout the show. Oh, I should add, by the way, both of these men had some incredible fake tans. So,
incredibly bad.
Magnus said Jeff had sold out before, and now he had sold out again. And Jeff was frustrated, and he finally told Magnus to worry about his own life. Which was not a denial, by the way.
You know what's interesting about this show? Is it just kind of shows you how different the wrestling world is today, in that there was an AJ Styles video package to open up the show, and he could have signed with WWE Monday.
Yes.
He could have been on Raw.
Yes.
He could have been on Raw and SmackDown for like 3 weeks before they wrote him out of the storyline in TNA. Isn't that amazing? And like WWE in 2014 doesn't even give a shit. It's just mind-boggling to me.
This business. Christy interviewed Kurt Angle backstage, and he essentially said that his feud with Bobby Roode was not the end of Angle, it was just the beginning. This proved to be false. So Borash was interviewing Chavo Guerrero backstage. Chavo got a briefcase last week in the stupid Feast or Fired match. Zema Ion interrupted. He wanted to talk about his stupid briefcase from the stupid Feast or Fired match. And they jibber-jabbered a bit, and they both went through a door. Now, I only even bring this up because the next match was Kurt Angle versus Bobby Roode in what, if you've been watching, has been the most heavily promoted match they could do. This match, from the build, seemed more important than the World Championship match. So they do that stupid thing with Chavo and Zema. And they go to the ring, and Kurt and Bobby are just standing there, no entrance for either guy, and then Kurt didn't even get an introduction. Only Roode did. They both came off like complete geeks. Then they proceeded to have a stunningly bad match. First of all was like any other TV match you ever see except slower. And then Roode won with a low blow and attitude adjustment. That's his new move. He stole John Cena's finisher. Christy then declared, quote, "The winner of the first fall, Bobby Roode."
Mm-hmm.
She was so bored. Then they wrestled like a minute, and Kurt won with an angle slam.
Yeah.
Christy was no more excited for Kurt's win. And then they had the third fall, which was a very, very, very bad version of every Kurt Angle match I've seen since 2002. They did crossfaces, they did ankle locks, they did angle slams, they did FUs, and eventually Roode had a roll up and hook the ropes for the win. So, fuck finish at the end. I don't know if this feud is over or not. It was not very good. I do not want to see this match again. And that was it.
I don't know if maybe this show went long and they had to cut stuff out, but my God, this was like the most boring Kurt Angle match I've seen in God knows how long. Boring first fall, 1 minute, 2 minute second fall, and then the third fall, the people at least seemed a little more into it, but the building is so small and mic'd so poorly that it still sounds like they're wrestling in an empty warehouse.
Yeah.
I couldn't even believe this.
And by the way, if they had to cut something, they really could have cut that Zema Ion Chavo Guerrero segment.
Yeah, you'd think.
You would think.
Maybe they didn't cut anything. Maybe this was just a shockingly boring match.
So last week in Feast or Fired, which is still the stupidest match of all time, the final briefcase was gotten when Gunner backstabbed his own partner, James Storm, and caused him to fall testicles first onto the turnbuckle. Then grab the briefcase. And you and I argued, or at least we were not in agreement about whether or not this would be a breakup. Well, they haven't broken up yet. They're still together after Gunner dropped Storm onto his balls.
Well, you know.
So Gunner insisted that Storm would have done the same thing in that situation.
Dropped him on his balls?
Yep. Storm said that Gunner might get fired now, to which Gunner had the following comeback. Maybe. Maybe not.
Yeah.
That's all I can say.
Yeah. What the hell is he supposed to say?
Do what the other guy's doing. Well,
your mom?
Everyone else always talks about how they're total optimists.
Been a funny comeback, by the way. Who cares? Your mom, Storm.
Yeah. All right.
You may be fired tonight. Yeah, your mom.
That would have been better. You're right. The only good thing on the show, they interviewed Kurt Angle backstage. He was distraught about this loss. Could not believe he had lost to Bobby Roode. He could not believe he had lost 2 falls in one night to Bobby Roode. They raised the possibility that maybe Roode just got your number. Kurt didn't even want to think about that. He couldn't bear to deal with any of this. He was going to go home for the holidays to be with his family, and then he was going to make a decision about his future. This is the best thing this company has done in years in making wins and losses actually seem important. So thumbs up for this. Borash interviewed Ethan Carter III about his briefcase. Carter, unlike Gunner, he did not say maybe, maybe not. He was very confident. He explained that he had nothing to lose because even if he got fired, he knew the people in charge. Then he took a phone call. And when he answered the phone, somehow we could hear everything Dixie Carter was saying on the other end. So Ethan wanted to know what was in his briefcase.
I'm sure he was just on speaker.
Dixie, reading badly from a script, said that they had hired the law firm of Smith and Stone. Why should I care? Smith and Stone to handle these briefcases. It was their responsibility. She didn't know what was in any of the cases, and more to the point, she couldn't do anything about it if he was fired.
She should have hired the law firm of Park and Park.
I guess.
Because one Park's gone now.
Yeah. So, yeah, if Ethan Carter gets fired, her own nephew, she cannot hire him back. Feast or Fire is the stupidest thing ever. Did I mention this? It gets stupider with each passing segment. And it's over. Eric Young called Joe Park down to the ring. Said, "You're Abyss." Park said, "No, I'm not." Young said, "I punched you and you bled and you turned to the monster Abyss." Park said he blacked out when that happened. One fan called him a liar. Young announced Park in a handicap match against Bad Influence next week in a Monsters Ball match. Park was appalled. He absolutely refused to do this. So Eric said, "Open these packages, some presents I got for you." The first present was a steel chair, and the second was a bag of thumbtacks, and the third was a roll of barbed wire. And the barbed wire hit the table, and the Impact Wrestling crowd met this with polite applause. A golf clap for the barbed wire. So Park said none of this affected him. He was still refusing to do the match. And Eric said, "I got one more gift for you. It's under the ring." Park went under the ring. He found Janice.
Dixie's mom?
No, the stick with a bunch of nails in it.
Oh.
But he can't actually hit with anyone because it would kill them. But it had a bow on it, which I thought was funny. And fans remembered Janice. They chanted her name. She was one of the biggest stars in the show. And Park was a little bewildered, but he accepted Eric Young's challenge, and he carried the stick to the back.
So in storyline, Eric Young knew that Abyss was probably going to turn down his request, and so he made sure to come with 4 gifts, each of increasing intensity, and a final gift underneath the ring, just to make sure he'd accept.
That was his plan, yes.
Okay. Smart guy.
He can predict the future. In my notes I wrote this was fun. In hindsight, it does not seem fun at all.
Wow.
Samoa Joe met with Jeff Hardy backstage. He could not believe that Jeff had taken a shortcut. Jeff said he owed nobody an explanation, and he walked away. Then it was time to open the briefcases. They did this in a small office backstage. There were no fans. I mean, even for Impact standards.
It's hot in there.
They had, right. There were no fans. They did have scary music.
It's dramatic music, Vinny. Not scary.
Music. Oh, parts of it were scary. So, Dixie arrived.
Where was she when EC3 was calling her like 5 minutes earlier?
I don't know. So, long story short, this was essentially the worst Law & Order segment of all time here on TNA Impact. Dixie said Feast or Fired was one of her great ideas, like the Wheel of Dixie.
So again, the idea is that all of her ideas are actually ideas that legitimately were horrible.
Yes.
Which she's now using. So they're using horrible ideas on television, and we're supposed to believe that Dixie is completely incompetent at her job. Right? Am I missing anything?
Right. Because,
okay.
And the key here is that Dixie, is if Dixie's incompetent at her job, that means TNA as a company is incompetent because they are rotten from the top down. So Zema opened his briefcase. He got an X Division title shot. Borash asked Gunner, if you get your tag title shot, will you team with James Storm, the man you dropped on his balls last week to win? Gunner said, of course.
No tension. Yeah, hell yeah. We're buddies.
So he did not get the tag title shot. He got the heavyweight title shot. That made him happy. That made Storm pissed.
Man, what a dick.
So we're down to Chavo Guerrero and Ethan Carter.
So hold on a second. Last week, didn't Gunner turn on Storm?
It seemed that way.
But now Storm is the one who's acting irrationally. So who's going to be the heel in this storyline?
I don't know. I don't know. What are we going to do?
Answer. Make something up. Analyze.
Both. The answer is both. Because they're both being assholes. This is a horrible show. All right, down to Ethan Carter and Chavo Guerrero with 2 briefcases left, and obviously one of them is getting canned. So before they can open them, Sting storms in. He runs down the Carter family for ruining the business, points out that nobody has ever handed the Guerreros anything. They built their own legacy, and the fact that Chavo has a 50-50 chance of being fired sucks. That's what he said in character. Sting is the one who realizes how stupid this concept is. Then he said he knew Ethan was...
And keep in mind, when Vinny explains this, that Sting is the man who talked EC3 into doing this.
So he turns to Carter, and he says, I know you're scared. You think you're getting fired. I'll do you a favor. I will take that briefcase off your hands and suffer the consequences if you guarantee me 1 match. And Ethan refused. He kept his briefcase. And so they opened it, and Ethan got a tag title shot, and Chavo got fired. Sting gave Chavo a pep talk. So he landed on his feet. He should have said, you can go back to WWE. That would have been awesome. He cut a promo on the Carters saying Dixie disgusted him, and he had no words for Ethan. Chavo was left to ponder his fate. Sting's promo at the end was really good here, if I'm being fair.
Sting's great.
Sting was great.
Who is going to be EC3's tag team partner? Spud?
Who gives a fuck?
EC3 and Spud?
The answer is no one on earth could possibly give a shit. No one. No one drove home from the building. Who do you think Ethan Carter will tag with? No one cared.
I just asked that question. I cared.
You're the one.
I don't know if I cared.
I don't think Ethan cares.
I'm concerned is not the word. I'm curious.
I'm not. Man has got a backstage promo about how Jeff wasn't answering any questions. Lady Tapa and Gail Kim versus ODB and Madison Rayne.
You know what's amazing about this? I don't know if this is accurate, but I'm pretty sure that Lady Tapa is only 5'11".
Wow, really?
She looks like the Big Show in there.
She looks, 6'5" or more.
I realize these girls are short and everything like that, but when I heard she was less than 6 feet tall, I was just like, wow, she is as tall as Shawn Michaels.
Yes. There was a great line talking about how much bigger she was than the other girls, and Taz noted, this woman's tall. She's even taller than me.
She's 6'4". She's taller than me.
Yeah. So Madison Rayne wrestled for many years and then left to have a baby, and then after pregnancy, but before returning to wrestling, she won a bikini contest.
Yeah.
This woman works out and takes great care of her body.
You know, going back to Taz's line,
all right,
based on the height of all the other girls, she may be the only girl taller than him.
Perhaps.
Maybe ODB.
So Madison is Madison's in great shape, is my point, but you would not know it from her gear. She had a bikini top and a skirt, and there's a strip of fabric running up her belly. And something about this made it look like she had a gut. And I promise you she does not. So this gear's got to go. So the match was mostly Tapa beating up ODB. It was not terrible. It was kind of boring. And then Madison made a big comeback and went back and forth with Gail and pinned her with a backslide, and that was that. Sting met with Jeff Hardy backstage. He said Jeff did not owe an explanation to Magnus or Joe or even himself. He did owe an explanation to his fans and his family. Jeff said Sting did not understand. Sting insisted he did. We had a segment apparently taped a few days prior to the show where Dixie and Spud were at Dixie's house. And Dixie was mad at Spud for failing to retrieve the championship belt from AJ. And this meant Dixie had no belt to present to the champion. By the way, I enjoyed the Spud segments last week. It was pointed out to me, why, if you were Dixie, would you air footage of your assistant coming off like such a boob?
So Lance emailed you.
Okay. I was trying to kayfabe him, but yes. Lance made the same point to me.
Yes.
And he's right, because the answer is that Dixie is incompetent. The head of the company is incompetent, and on her own program is presented as incompetent. And there's more of this to come.
You know what's funny is all of that trouble to get that goddamn belt from AJ, and Dixie could have just gone to shoptna.com and bought a brand new TNA Championship collector's belt. A legit exact replica, apparently, because it's $2,750.
What?
Yeah. Not making this up.
Christ.
It is I'll read this right here. This is a real copy of the TNA Impact Wrestling Championship belt. This is not a replica. Wait a second. Isn't a copy a replica? Anyway, each are individually handmade by Wildcat Championship belts, and each belt will be stamped with its own production number, $2,750. It is a sweet belt, I'm not going to lie. And I would like to give a shout-out to Wildcat Championship belts.
Sure.
As they are the people that created the Texarkana television title, in fact.
Did not know that.
Yeah. All right, go on.
So Hardy came out for his promo. Now remember, he didn't want to talk about any of this. He didn't want his dirty laundry aired. He was mad at Magnus for bringing it up, mad at Joe for wanting to talk about it. So first he starts talking about what happened in 2010, and everyone knew how that ended in 2011. And when he said that, I thought, you mean the time you showed up in no condition to perform and we got a 2-second pay-per-view main event? I thought that's what he was talking about. That he would actually bring that back up here on the air, which blew my mind. And then when I think about it, I believe, I did not look this up, but I believe that the time Jeff showed up in no condition to perform was actually a rematch, and Sting went into that match as champion. So I don't even know what he meant by how that ended. He didn't explain. He said, yes, I had met with Dixie, but all he cared about was his wife, his daughter, and his fans. And so he told Dixie to take her big money and stick it. So I guess that means his contract is up too? Or something?
I don't know.
And if so, why did you meet with her? Why not just not sign? And by the way, all of this, why did you not want to talk about it? Why did you want it to be a big secret? None of this makes any sense. So he vowed to win the title like AJ. I assume this means he was going to go to Mexico and Japan too and leave the company. Then Dixie came out. She said Jeff and his family owed everything to her. She threatened to fire him and said he needed her more than she needed him. So we've talked many, many times about what an incompetent goof Dixie Carter is on this show. Now we are told that one of her biggest stars and the potential world heavyweight champion is such a goof that he has nowhere else to go.
Yeah.
He has no other options in life but to work for this other goof.
Well, truth in advertising. I mean, I don't know where else he's going to go. AJ Styles left. There's nowhere for him to go except back to TNA.
Yeah.
Which is ridiculous.
I don't know. It's just...
How do you not sign AJ Styles if you're WWE? You know what I mean? How do you not sign him and let him go to FCW or NXT or whatever and see what there is to see?
I don't know. They've convinced themselves that he's too old to learn their style. That's the best answer I have for you. I don't know. But more to the point, why do you want your characters, your wrestlers, your stars on TV portrayed on your own program as geeks who are lucky to have jobs?
I think the idea is she's a heel. But you're right. It
is actually worse in that Jeff was like sheepish and trying to apologize, saying, you're right, you were there for me.
Well, I think that was more Jeff just sarcastically nodding his head at this crazy woman. I actually thought he was really good as reactions. A lot of eye rolling and, dear God, can this please end?
So, Jeff Hardy versus Magnus in a Dixieland match for the Impact Heavyweight title. To recap, ladder match with the ladder on the stage and both guys start in a cage in the ring. Now, I've said many, many times over the past 3 weeks that Feast or Fired was the stupidest match of all time. And in some ways it is. But in some ways, this match topped it for sheer stupidity. Mainly, the attempts by Jeff Hardy to kill himself.
Oh, yeah.
And they were many. So they almost immediately started brawling on the top rope, and Magnus took a flat back bump to the mat, and then Jeff missed a senton. Those both looked like they sucked. Dixie was out there watching from the stage. Ethan Carter came out essentially in his underwear to stand next to his aunt and watch. That was creepy.
Oh, by the way, did you mention that when Jeff was talking about his meeting with Dixie, he mentioned that she'd offered him a lifetime deal?
I did not mention that.
Yeah. Which I guess you can explain that in the storyline, she had actually offered him everything, but after he turned it down, then she had to come out and bury him. So that at least is the explanation of burying him on television. But aside from that, can you imagine being offered a lifetime deal for TNA? Let's think about that for a second. You're going to sign with TNA for the rest of your life. How about no? That was her big mistake.
Yeah.
She just offered him a 3-year deal. He'd have done whatever she wanted. She threatened a lifetime deal.
Yes.
Anyway, yeah, this match was like, it was, I don't know if it was just me, Maybe it was just late in the evening. I don't know, but it was so boring for so long.
No, that happened. Yeah.
It's just like a boring match.
Well, because by definition, because they couldn't just leave the cage right away and start brawling. Because once they got out of the cage, it's not like they're going to go back into the cage and do spots. And while they were in the cage, they couldn't do any near falls or even teases, really.
Right. That's right.
So all they could really do was start to climb and then get pulled down. But then it actually got really stupid. And not just stupid for the destructive reasons, because they started doing spots. First, Magnus went up top. Now, let's think about this. Magnus is standing on the top rope. Jeff Hardy's lying down in the middle of the ring. The only way to win is to climb over the top of this goddamn cage and go get the belt. So Magnus chose, rather than climb out, I'm going to jump back down and hit an elbow smash. And then there's no pinfalls, there's no submissions. I'll just keep wrestling the guy. So boy, I thought to myself, that's fucking stupid. Little did I know.
Little did you know.
Hardy cuts him off. Hardy climbs to the top rope. Hardy climbs to the top of the cage. He's on top of the cage. Magnus is standing on the mat. And to win this match, I got to get over the top of the cage and go down to the floor and go get the belt.
That's the idea.
Hardy then chose to give some kind of gesture to Dixie, then turn around and hit a whisper in the wind onto Magnus. Now, explained why this is stupid from the logic standpoint of why would you turn down a chance to win just to hit a move? But to actually see this move, this was stupid. Jeff came straight down onto Magnus's head, just like Zema Ion did to, help me out. The guy who just debuted in Ring of Honor, and he busted his neck in TNA.
Oh, Jesse Sorensen.
Jesse Sorensen, thank you. He came down straight down on his head just like that. Thankfully, it was not a tragedy here. And then Hardy just splatted onto the mat. Just crashed down. So that was dumb. Then
he actually hit his calf on the top of Magnus's head.
Yep.
And he hit his calf so hard on the top of his head that he limped for the rest of the match, clutching at his calf.
Yeah.
I couldn't even believe this. It gets better.
There's more to come.
Oh, yeah.
So both guys finally climb at the same time. And Ethan runs down and he starts attacking Magnus. Okay. So they're brawling on the floor. Jeff had climbed from the other side of the ring. He got out and he goes to pass them by. And all he has to do as Ethan is brawling is go up the ramp and win the belt. But that's not the right thing to do. So he attacks Ethan, lays him out with a stunner. So now the story is either, I don't even know. We'll get to We'll get to that at the end. So Hardy and Magnus start brawling on the ramp, and Hardy lays him out with a twist of fate on the ramp. That's his finish. This should be it. This should be the end. Hardy goes to the ladder. Dixie blocks his path. He screamed at her. She moved. Hardy paused to remove his shirt for the crowd. Always important to do when you're about to climb a ladder and win the World Championship. He's up at the top of the ladder. He's about to win the belt when Rockstar Spud appears, and he tips the ladder over. And this ladder was on top of the stage. There were no tables nearby. There were no pretty black mats. There were no crash pads. All there was Jeff Hardy falling from the top of the ladder, ass over tea kettle, onto the cold, unforgiving ramp.
Shoulder and face.
Shoulder and face first.
Yeah.
There's actually on the TNA website a slow motion shot of this from the side. And you can see Jeff Hardy land on his shoulder and then onto his face. This was so fucking dumb.
Yeah.
This was amazingly dumb.
I could not believe. I mean, it'd be one thing if maybe he was winning the title. And even then.
No.
Even then, don't do this. But he was losing the match on Impact. I guess, you know what, to be fair, way more people watched this match than would have watched any pay-per-view. By approximately 100 times.
Okay.
So, I guess from that perspective, if you're going to kill yourself, you may as well do it in front of 1.5 million people than 12,000 or 8,000. But still, I just could not even believe the stuff this guy was doing for this match. It was... He's old. He's got a family. He's got a daughter. The whisper in the wind off the cage, the falling. I mean, so many ways you can fall off the ladder and not kill yourself, and it still looks spectacular.
He did not land on his feet first and then roll to his side.
No, he fell right on his side and his head.
Yes.
It's amazing. I mean, I got to give the guy credit, As weird as this is to say, because I don't think he should have done any of this, but the guy worked his ass off. This guy was losing a match, and he went out there and he goddamn near killed himself. So, loves his craft.
His craft is destroying himself.
It is.
This is not a craft. This is, I don't know. I had to go back and watch. There was a match. Actually, it may have just been one spot, but I remember a point in when Mick Foley was in WCW, and he went into a match or an angle, and he was legitimately hoping to get a career-ending injury and get his injury settlement and go home. This looked like what Jeff was trying to do here. That's my only explanation.
Yeah. So Magnus
climbed the ladder. He got the belt and he won, so he's the world champion. And then he climbed down and he celebrated with Dixie and Spud and Ethan. Now, Ethan, you recall, like 5 minutes before, had attacked Magnus and tried to stop him from winning. So were they in on it together the whole time? They just wanted to fool people?
I don't know.
Were they trying to make Jeff Hardy look bad? Nobody's motivations in the show made any sense. The whole point of the message of the product is we're incompetent and our wrestlers are geeks. And then a man tried to kill himself on TV. Did I miss anything?
That about covers it.
That is Impact.
Well, luckily for you, Lance will like your review. You will not be shouted down.
You never know.
No, I'm pretty sure.
I think
this was a bad show.
I am going through trying to think of where my Lance might disagree with me, and I'm having trouble.
You're going to have a hard time.
Yeah.
This was, I will say, you know what he probably did like? The fact that there were some matches on the show where men grappled to determine who was better. And when a man lost, he was devastated.
The Kurt Angle thing was great.
That was one good thing on the show.
Yeah.
Now, aside from that, this was a rough one. And like I said, I don't know if he's re-signed yet or not, but if he hasn't, AJ Styles could be on Raw Monday. I don't think he will be. I do not want to see that on any internet site that Brian Alvarez reported that AJ Styles will be on Raw Monday. If you report that, I'm going to be very angry at you.
I'll kill you.
In fact, you know what happened today? I woke up today and somebody close to AJ had emailed me and said, this report is inaccurate. And it was a report from some internet website that said that Brian Alvarez reports that AJ Styles and TNA have re-signed and everything is great.
Did you report this?
Fuck no. No idea what they were talking about. But it was attributed to me. So again, I don't want to see this tomorrow that I reported that AJ will be on Raw Monday. But, hey, if he hasn't re-signed, he could be on Raw Monday. And they still got 2 more weeks of television with AJ. Maybe 1 more week, I'm not sure. But anyway, he's got at least 1 more week of television.
All right, so Rockstar Spud came out. They had wacky, triumphant music with horns blaring and fanfare and all this hullabaloo, in fact. And he introduced Dixie. In the process, he compared her to both Lady Gaga and Santa Claus. Dixie came out, said Magnus was the best champion in company history. Keep in mind, he has had 0 defenses so far.
Just won the title last week.
Yep. Fans are chanting for AJ. She called Magnus the top man in Dixieland.
I kind of like that.
That's more information than I needed, I think. So she started talking about a big announcement for next week when Jeff Hardy interrupted. Now, I don't know if they taped this the same night as the ladder match, but he looked beat up all to hell, limping down the ring in complete misery. So he limps on out, and he says he's there to get something off his chest when Spud cut him off. And Spud Spud's awesome. I'll say that. Spud is awesome in his role. So he tears Jeff a new one, this tiny, insignificant little man. He starts screaming at Jeff about how dare you come out here. This is our boss. This is our queen. You will show her the respect she is due. And Jeff was trying to say this would only take a minute. Spud just finally said, no, take your creatures, shove them up your ass, and get out of this ring. And he slapped him in the face.
Wow.
And I thought, well, there's a twist of fate coming here. But no, Jeff just grabbed him and threw him into the corner. He reiterated this would only take a minute when EC3 came barreling down out of nowhere, knocked Hardy out of the ring. Dixie got back in the mic, assured us she was fine, which was awesome since there had been no contact. She started to make her big announcement again when Sting came out. So Sting gets in the ring, and Spud's there, and EC3 is there, and he stares them down, and they both dive out of the ring and abandon Dixie. That was funny. So Sting demands a match with Ethan, and then he says, better yet, do me and Jeff versus Ethan Spud. Dixie says, no, that's a terrible idea. I got a much better idea. It'll be a tag team match with you and Jeff versus Ethan and Spud. So Spud is awesome. I have no idea why he is Rockstar Spud. There's nothing about him that is rockstar anyway, but I love Spud.
So we never found out what Jeff Hardy had to say, that he only needed a minute to tell us?
We never found out what Jeff Hardy or what Dixie had to say in that first segment.
Wow.
So they came back from commercial. Dixie was still in the ring trying to make her announcement. She interrupted again when Gunner came out. He demanded a title shot against Magnus for Feast or Fired, or from Feast or Fired. And she said no, mainly because Magnus is already back in England celebrating with millions of fans. She then told Gunner to, quote, go ahead and get out of here, okay? So Magnus, or Gunner told her to give Magnus a warning, and she blew him off. All Dixie ever does in the show is bury every single person on the roster. I know we talk about this every week, but it's the job of a promoter to make the talent look like stars. And Dixie comes out here and makes them look like geeks. Every week and every show.
You know, that was the thing that always drove me crazy about Eric Bischoff. It was like, Dave in particular always was talking about how Bischoff is a great television personality. And I understand in the sense that he does a great job playing like a really unlikable douchebag.
Yes, he does.
But to me, whenever I watched Eric on television, it was like, okay, Eric's being a dick. Okay, Eric's being a dick. Okay, Eric's being a dick. And I was always waiting for like, okay, so where's the comeuppance? When is Eric or his guys going to get their comeuppance? And for some reason, they never got their comeuppance. Eric never got his comeuppance. And so at the end of the day, it was kind of like, okay, so like, what is the point of this heel character if like he never gets vanquished in the end? You know what I mean? Like there should be some, even like when Vince McMahon was Mr. McMahon in the 90s, he was that heel McMahon character. Every 3 or 4 months, you know, he'd be doused by like a beer truck, or he'd get beat up by Steve Austin, get a stun or something. You know, he'd always like, he'd be diabolical, but at the end of the day, he'd get his. And the
biggest difference. Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, I don't remember, you know, Bischoff every now and then, like every there'd be a great, like he'd just get, you know, laid out here and there, but then he'd be back the next week like nothing happened. I mean, he never really got his comeuppance, and I don't know if we're gonna get it with Dixie.
The other difference between Vince McMahon's character and Eric Bischoff's character, and then Dixie's character on the other extreme, is that Vince and Eric, I don't recall this, at least not like it's almost ritualistic in TNA. I don't think they ever necessarily bury their talent. It was always, you may be a great star, you may be a champion, you may be a big scary man, but damn it, I'm Eric Bischoff. So they put themselves at a level above that person. Dixie does it the other way, where she undercuts everyone else.
Mm-hmm.
You're lucky to have a job here. You will be nothing without me.
It'd be all fine if she got hers in the end. Maybe it's coming. But I mean, so far it's just one burial after another of the talent.
Yeah. And everyone just stands there and takes it. Gunner stood here and he took it. He backed down. Gunner!
Yeah.
So James Storm came out, and he and Gunner yelled at each other for a while. And Gunner was mad that, actually, Storm was mad that Gunner threw in the towel and was matching against Bobby Roode. And Storm accused Gunner of stooging him off for Roode, saying Storm's going to be in that bar if you want to go beat him up. Finally, Storm demanded a match against Gunner for the briefcase, and Dixie granted it. Why? As punishment, because Gunner had interrupted her. And so the segment ended with Storm and Gunner having a stare down as Dixie's music played. What a rinky-dink podunk wrestling show this is.
Not a fan, huh?
It's just it's too much of the same stuff every segment and every week. They make themselves they go out of their way to make themselves look second rate. So James Storm versus Gunner for the briefcase. The first match in the show began 27 minutes into the show. It was fun once it got started. It's not like Gunner was full-blown heel, but he sold for a while and he cut Storm off and put on a bunch of chin locks, and then Storm made a comeback. And then they were brawling on the floor and they got counted out. James Storm had a chance to win the world title, or at least a shot at the world title, and he let himself get counted out of the ring.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not like Gunner was holding him down either. In fact, he was winning at the time. And he turned around and he looked at the ref, realized he'd been counted out, and he threw his hands in the air as if to say, "Boy, I'm dumb." And then they brought up the ramp. This is a poorly booked show. Brooke met with Bully Ray backstage. Say that she had not had contact with Bully for weeks. Didn't know where he'd been. He hadn't returned her texts or her calls or her emails. Said she was going to the ring to air some dirty laundry. And he spoke her name one time, and then she kept on walking. They had a bunch of Rise of Magnus videos, which was sit-down interviews with Magnus in a suit and tie. The very first thing he said here, and this is almost a direct quote, is that in his first 5 years in TNA, he had been through all sorts of regime changes and several stupid gimmicks. So he talked about being in tag teams, and everyone always said how he would be the future, but he was not going to be put in main events yet because he wasn't ready, brother. Once again, taking a shot at a guy who no longer works for the company. And he said that getting taken out by the Aces and Eights had been the best thing to happen to him because it put him in the spotlight. And that's all he said in this segment. There was more to come. Brooke hit the ring. She was wearing the tightest leather pants I've ever seen in my life, and not once did they show her ass on camera.
Classic.
Amazing.
I was getting ready to go find the show, and now I don't need to bother.
Deliberately trying to drive people away. So she said again that she had not spoken to Bully Ray in weeks. So I guess that backstage segment I saw 10 minutes ago was a dream. She refused to take the blame for throwing the hammer to AJ and called the Bully Ray down to the ring. And Bully came out in sunglasses and a hoodie. I think when AJ left the company, he just gave all his gear to Bully. So Bully proceeded to circle the ring and not look at her, just walk slowly in circles around the ring. And she was talking to him. Fans said they wanted Devon. So Brooke was saying that they could fix things. And then she started turning on Ray, called him the weird high school kid with no friends. She said she was done. And she started to walk away, and Ray grabbed her arm. And he cut a promo still without ever looking at her. And said that he was the one who would say things were done. So he did not blame her for screwing things up. After all, he did not keep her around for her brains. Said he kept her around because she had certain uses, but she wasn't even very good at those. And in fact, sometimes he would close his eyes and pretend he was still with Brooke number 1.
Wow.
Yes.
Another person no longer with the company.
At least that was funny.
Yes.
Then the scary music returned.
Oh, dear God.
Yeah. And said he was tempted to pile drive her, but he was not going to. Instead, he was going to use her to spread his message. He talked about how she knew all the evil, horrible things he had done. And he wanted her to tell everyone. And then he took off his sunglasses and looked in their eyes. Tell her it's going to get worse. And she left. And Bully Ray now apparently is a Satan worshiper or something.
Did you see the thread on the board about Daphne's latest shoot video?
I did not know.
I said it was interesting because she talks about Eric Bischoff, and she talked about how he was not a very nice guy. And she said,
you don't say.
She said that whenever he was talking to her about an angle or whatever, she said he would never look at me in the eyes.
Really?
And now here's Bully Ray doing a gimmick where he refuses to look at Brooke in the eyes when he talks to her.
That's tremendous.
I wonder if that's a coincidence.
I don't know, but it's tremendous either way.
I'd guess not.
Joseph Park was backstage looking at barbed wire and thumbtacks, asking what Eric had gotten him into. Magnus talked about joining the main event mafia, and he said they only chose me to be in the group because they were afraid of me and they didn't want to fight me. EC3 and Spud went to Dixie to protest their tag match. EC3 outright said, "I am not in the class of Sting and Hardy. I'm not ready for this."
Awesome.
So she gave them a pep talk, reminded them it was a tag team match, and she said she had them covered. And then they put up the graphic for the match, picture of Sting and Hardy and a picture of Spud and Ethan. And Ethan and Spud in their suits, especially Spud, were awesome.
So where's this going with EC3? If it's admitted that he's no good, like what does it lead to? He has to actually wrestle a match and he just gets beat up?
Apparently.
I don't get it. I mean, shouldn't the heat be that the guy is really talented, but he keeps being given geeks? I mean, I guess there's heat in the fact that he sucks and he keeps getting geeks. But where do you go with that? He sucks.
I don't know. But yes, Ethan Carter's gimmick is that he sucks.
His gimmick is that he's no good. Seems like it would have a shelf life. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's good times in the background there.
Man, I can't believe you can hear that.
They playing categories or something? What's happening?
No, there's some sort of new game that we got for Christmas I've never even heard of before.
What's it called?
It's like Caption It or something like that. There's like pictures and you all make captions and whoever has the funniest caption wins.
That sounds fun.
It's one of those games where when you buy it, you realize I could make up this game myself.
Right.
But you have to buy the game to discover that. You know what I mean?
Yes. And a Joe Park and Abyss history video. And then Eric Young gave Park a pep talk. He ordered the crew to hit Park's music. They played Abyss's music. Park said, "That's not my song." Young said, "Yes, it was," and he shoved him through the curtain. Then, before the match started, we had a clip of Sting giving a pep talk to Jeff backstage. So he was happy that they were going to get a chance to team for the first time. And Hardy was just bummed. Said he had not come there tonight to wrestle. And Sting said, "Look, whatever you wanted to say at the beginning of the show, just don't worry about it. We'll go win this match."
I wonder if the swerve will be at the end that Joe Park isn't Abyss. I don't know where they go with it, but it would definitely be a swerve.
That does not seem to be the direction based on this. Unless this actually is Abyss's brother.
Yeah.
So Joe Park wrestled Bad Influence at a Monsters Ball match. The whole match was Bad Influence working him over with weapon shots to the body, because of course they did not want him to bleed. In fact, at one point, Kaz lifted a chair up way over his head, and Daniels pushed Abyss out of the way and said, "No. Where'd he go? I actually have the quote here. I think he said, "We don't want him bleeding." So every once in a while, Park would make a comeback with like hip tosses and body slams, and they cut it off again. They were brawling on the floor, and Kaz threw him into the stairs, and Daniels panicked and ran over to make sure he was not bleeding. And then when he saw he wasn't bleeding, he cackled. Daniels is awesome. Eric Young came down. Park said, "I need you to help me." So Eric was about to punch him in the face to make him bleed when Bad Influence cut him off, and they threw both dudes in the ring. And then the payoff to all this was quite awesome as Kaz reared back for a mighty cane shot, but Eric dodged, and the cane hit Park in the face. And Park went down. And Bad Influence spent the next minute or so beating up Eric, and then posturing and posing for fans as, of course, Park slowly rose to his feet, bleeding profusely. And the slow burn realization of Bad Influence of the, "Oh no, we fucked up now," that was excellent. So Abyss no-sold all their stuff, hit a few shots of his own, hit all the Abyss spots, and he pinned Daniels with the Black Hole Slam. And then they played Abyss's music. And Joe Park did not snap back into Joe Park mode. He grabbed Janice, and he roared. Eric Young jumped in the ring and applauded. And Taz said the monster Abyss had arrived. And that was it for the show. So perhaps Abyss is just back now.
Oh, that was it for the segment. I thought you meant that was the main event.
No. There's more. Jeff Hardy was on the phone backstage telling someone he had been thinking about this for weeks, and it was something he had to do. And it just occurred to me in hindsight how stupid that line is, but we'll get on with this. Magnus talked about the BFG series and how it was his breakout moment because he had led the whole way and then lost at the end. And he explained that that loss had been the most important moment of his career because that was the moment he decided he would never let himself know that kind of disappointment again. He would do whatever it took to get the job done. And he beat Sting. Lady Tapa wrestled ODB. Gail, before and after the match, cut a promo basically saying that if Madison Ray tried anything again, Lady Tapa would kill her. So Taz was comparing Tapa to various movie monsters like Godzilla, and then Mothra, and then Lady Ghidra.
Wow, that's obscure.
That gimmick would rule.
Even I've heard of that, believe it or not.
A three-headed gold LeMay monster. That would be awesome. So ODB knows what she's doing in there, and so this is a perfectly acceptable wrestling match.
I'm sure they did a million matches in Ohio Valley, I'm sure.
That's probably true, too. So ODB made her come back. Gail threw her belt in the ring to distract the ref, then yanked ODB down by her hair behind the ref's back, and then Tapa hit a firebrand carry into a stunner for the pin. There's actually a lot more to go. Chris Sabin and Velvet were backstage talking about how great their holidays had been. Velvet said her New Year's resolution, and I actually wrote revolution there, but her resolution would be to make their relationship stronger.
Oh, wow. How romantic.
And Sabin thought this resolution was decent. So Sabin's idea was instead, you should resolve to do anything to help me beat Austin Aries for the X Division title next week. And Velvet wasn't sure she should do this because, cheating is wrong. And he said, well, if you won't help me, I guess I'll have to find another girl who will.
Wow. That's not helping their relationship get better. She needs to help him win that title. That serves both of their purposes.
It's true. Sting was walking backstage with Jeff. Noted Jeff's head wasn't in the game, told him to focus. They did a 30-second commercial for the one-night-only tag team tournament. I was more intrigued by this show than anything they'd actually done on Impact. Just a bunch of tag teams get together and fight to see who's best. That sounds fun.
Isn't this the one where they had teams from all over the world, and one of the countries was Team Aces and Eights?
Probably.
They're their own country.
I think they did a World Cup with that.
There's a World Cup. That's right.
They brought back teams from the past like Team 3D and the Young Bucks, and I think maybe had the Machine Guns there, but yeah. The last Rise of Magnus video just said Dixie had once picked up a magazine that had AJ Styles on the cover, but inside was a photo of Magnus. That's what inspired Dixie to bring him in.
Well, that may be true, actually.
That's entirely possible. And since then, he had known that Dixie was in his corner, and he had proven he was Dixie's man when he won the ladder match for the title.
I remember hearing that a long time ago, that Dixie thought he was so handsome.
Well, that helps.
Sure does.
That helps a lot.
Now he's the only man in Dixieland, except for Serge.
Right, of course. Sting and Jeff Hardy versus EC3 and Rockstar Spud. Before the match could begin, Dixie appeared on the screen to finally make her big announcement.
By the way, this means I was correct about the tag team partner of EC3 for his tag team title shot. It's going to be Spud.
I guess.
What a great team.
So, Dixie's big announcement. Big announcement, as I coughed directly to the microphone, that she had been hyping for the entire show, was that next week, they were going to have a Magnus coronation ceremony.
Thank God I waited 2 hours to hear that news.
Mm-hmm. And then she said, by the way, this main event tag match here, it's going to be a tag match, but it's going to be a handicap tag match. And she added the Bromans to the mix.
Bromans are the champions, right?
Yep.
So are you telling me that on my television set soon, I may see EC3 and Rockstar Spud against the Bromans for the tag team titles?
I hadn't thought about it, but that seems entirely possible now.
Dear God.
What a show that'll be.
I'm not sure I can handle this.
So the whole gimmick here was that both Ethan and Spud were terrified of Sting and Hardy. So it was essentially a tag match anyway. Just the Bromans against Sting and Hardy. And it was kind of your average TV tag match. Heat on Jeff, of course. And Zema Ion was also out there interfering rampantly. So at one point, you had all 5 guys putting the boots to Jeff. There was the only bump in the road here. Jesse hit a knee to the gut, and it's the kind of move that you always take. You come off the ropes, you take the knee to the gut, and you flip over onto your back. And don't know what happened, but Jeff under-rotated, and he took this knee and jumped up in the air and came down onto his face.
Oops.
That's not good. And finally, Sting got the hot tag. Actually, I should preface that. Ethan, of course, only came in when Hardy was taken out and was ripe for the picking. And so he throws Hardy to one corner. He goes to the other. He gives the Sting howl, and he goes for a Stinger splash, but Hardy dodged. And Sting got the hot tag. He ran wild on everyone. There was a bit where Spud was on Sting's back like a koala bear, as Sting was still beating people up. And finally, a lot of chaos and confusion. And then finally, Ethan hit Sting from behind, rolled him up, and pinned him.
Wow.
So Ethan pinned Sting here in his 4-on-2 match with the help of the World Tag Team Champions. And the Bromans put him on their shoulders and carried him up the ramp, and Ethan's music was playing. All the heels had a party. This is a great, it's a goofy story, but they're doing a great job of telling the story of Ethan, the most successful guy in the world, who has done nothing to actually deserve any of it.
Well, when does he learn how to wrestle?
I don't know.
In storyline.
I don't know.
I'm fascinated to see where this goes with the bromans now. Because they just carried him up the ramp, you know what I mean? Is he also going to beg for a tag title shot? Or I guess he can hold on to it for like a year if need be, right?
I suppose.
I don't know how Feast or Fired works. Nor do I care.
So Jeff grabbed a mic. Heels all left. Jeff grabbed a mic. He apologized to Sting for the loss. Said Sting is the one who had inspired him to be a wrestler in the first place. Then he said Dixie's actions had driven him crazy and taken his heart out of the business. He acknowledged that he had destroyed himself last week, which is true. He had lost, but Dixie did not own him. He started going off in this rambling rant about politics and games, and Lord knows what your average person sitting on their couch on a Thursday night watching Spike TV thought of any of this crap. He said the fight was gone. Sting begged him not to go through with it. Just said this had been my last match in TNA. And he vowed to leave the building and not return, quote, until the sun shines on this dark kingdom.
Drama queen.
So Tanay and Taz were talking about politics, and Jeff left. And I know there's a UK tour coming and Jeff can't go, but God, this is stupid. This is so dumb. And I'm so tired of backstage politics being the driving factor in on-screen storylines.
You know, forget the backstage politics. Wouldn't this have been better, this whole story and his entire speech, if EC3, as a result of a 5-on-1 beating, had pinned Jeff?
Well, there's that, but also he said he'd been thinking about this for weeks. And if that's the case, why did you take the World Championship shot in that damn ladder match?
Well, maybe he thought this is my chance. I don't know.
And for that matter, we still don't know.
I'm just thinking as a storyline, if they would have pinned Jeff, at least we wouldn't be talking about backstage politics. It would be something we just saw in front of our eyes right there in the ring. You know, he tried to win this title shot. He got screwed out of it. And now he goes in there in this tag title match, and she makes it a handicap match. He gets screwed and beaten again. He's had enough. The sun no longer shines in this dark land.
Well, it's more important to build heat between Sting and EC3.
I see.
Apparently. Quite lame, actually.
I guess that means Sting's around for a while. It's the end of the year, Vinny. It's the end of the year.
This company, you can't have faith in anything. I'm looking back over this. I enjoyed Spud immensely on the show. I enjoyed the Bad Influence Joe Park match. ODB's match was good. There's good stuff on here, but on the whole, just everything in the show just leaves you flat and uninspired.
So no AJ on the show. That means he returns next week. And I guess we'll have the title match the week after. Right?
Yeah, sure.
I mentioned this again, everybody. Can you believe that AJ Styles right now is supposedly a free agent? There are 2 more weeks of television before he drops the title. And he could have been in WWE on television for 2 weeks now. And they've done nothing. Just amazing to me. I mentioned this to Dave, if you didn't listen to the Dave show. You need to go back, everybody, listening to this right now. If you haven't seen this in a while, go back and watch Wrestling with Shadows. Go back and watch that movie, that documentary. And then consider that AJ Styles, who is one of 2 TNA World Heavyweight Champions right now, he is apparently a free agent. There's 2 more weeks of television, and WWE hasn't done a thing. It's incredible. It's incredible now, and watching Wrestling with Shadows is even more